your Shadow Cabinet colleague, Robert Jenrick, you referred to alien cultures, used the word medieval as well. You yourself, in an interview this week, have talked about, and as soon as I heard you say it, I instantly thought that word is going to become a story when you described, you can tell the listeners what the context was about peasants. First of all, Robert Jenrick, why is he still in your Shadow Cabinet?
Well, the Conservative Party is a broad church. I consider Rob a friend, and we will all have disagreements. There are all sorts of things that people will say, and I think, I wouldn't quite have phrased it like that. But I understand where he is coming from. And when I, for instance, used the word peasants, I was being very specific. I'd read about the specific group of people, and their papers written, it's always peasant farming background. And one of the problems that I think that we have in this country is that when there's a difficult topic, when there is something that people feel a bit squeamish about, we immediately start thinking, you didn't say it quite the way you should have said it. It's a distraction. And as soon as we're talking about, did you say medieval? Did you say alien? Did you say multicultural or multiracial? We stop talking about the problem. It is a way for people to distract themselves.
The words have consequences. Remember the Boris Johnson niqab comments about looking like letterboxes? I had callers the day after that saying, I'm a Muslim woman, I wear a niqab, I've just been abused in the street, and it's because of the language that Boris Johnson used.
Well, of course we need to be careful about language, but we also need to be accurate. And what I always start off with is saying, is this true or false? And quite often people aren't complaining about whether something is true or untrue. It's that they don't like that word. And I think that once we get down that sort of track, we stop talking about what we really need to be talking about. We need to be talking about the victims. We need to be talking about the survivors, not whether the rapists are being described in a way that people think is appropriate. I'm not on the side of the rapists and the groomers. I don't care how they're described. I'm on the side of the women who need to get justice.
Well, just on that, Dakota in Newton Aycliffe has a question which is relevant. Dakota, thank you very much for your call. What would you like to say?
Hello. My question for you is, during your time as Minister for Women and Equalities, why did you never speak about the grooming gangs? Grooming gangs have been a massive issue for years, so why now?
Several reasons. The first is that you speak on your portfolio, and even though the title was Women and Equalities, the grooming gangs issue was a Home Office issue, and you speak on the area that you cover. And I did speak about other victims. I spoke about the children who were having irreversible medical procedures. I spoke about the women who were suffering by having men put in female prisons. I spoke about the postmasters. I overturned their convictions in Parliament. So there were other groups of people that I was talking about. And I did speak about the grooming gang scandal. I just didn't speak about it in Parliament. I spoke about it on live national TV last year. So when Keir Starmer says, she didn't speak about it in Parliament, he's playing a trick because he knows that I was not a minister in an area where I would have been able to speak about it. And this is one of the things that I think is wrong with our politics today. There's all sorts of tricks and gimmicks that mean that people like you end up being misinformed because of Punch and Judy politics. I'm not somebody who has ever run away from saying what I think is right. And I talked about it last year. Now I am in charge of our party. Now I want us to spend more time on this issue.
This has been an issue since 2011.
That's true. But I've only been a member of Parliament since 2017. It's not an issue in my constituency. But also remember, the Conservative Party did do something. We launched an inquiry, the independent inquiry that Alexis J chaired, and it ended up doing far more. It covered all sorts of things, what happened in the Catholic Church and so on. So it wasn't. So I thought that inquiry was going to do a lot more on rape gangs and grooming gangs. And when the recommendations came out, we saw that it hadn't. We then launched a task force. Again, the Home Office did that. Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister, Suella Braverman as Home Secretary. They found 550 perpetrators. So I didn't need to say very much because we were doing things. And if other people are doing things, then just rocking up to say, by the way, I also care about this. That's not how you do politics. Now I am in charge and now I am doing my job, which is trying to get a national inquiry. And it's very interesting to see that Labour are now U-turning. They haven't said a national inquiry, but now they've found money for more local inquiries. They wouldn't be doing that if I wasn't doing my job as opposition. And that's what I need to do. I need to put pressure on the Labour Party to do the right thing.
Dakota, are you satisfied?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you got a happy customer there, Kemi. that doesn't happen very often on a phone, does it? Now, you don't support any idea of an accommodation with, a merger with reform, but Suella Braverman clearly disagrees with you. Isn't that going to be a running sore over the next few years?
No, I don't think so. And I think it's actually good to hear what my colleagues are thinking. And, I encourage people to say things openly. It's a lot better than hearing things anonymously. We will not always agree on things. So I understand where she's coming from. But the fact is, Nigel Farage has said that he wants to destroy the Conservative Party. He's not interested in removing Labour. He is interested in destroying Conservatives. And that, for me, is a red line. But also, I have strong views about people doing deals and pacts before an election has even occurred. Even after an election, it's confusing. Look at what happened to the Liberal Democrats when they went into coalition in 2010. People want to know what they're voting for. And if they vote for something and get something else, they become really disillusioned. What we need to do is stop thinking about what Reform is doing and look at ourselves. Why are people not voting Conservative anymore? Let's focus on making ourselves the best political product, not on trying to do deals.
And that came out in a poll that LBC did with More in Common, where they found that 1 in 4 Labour voters regretted their votes. 28% of those, however, said they now favour reform versus only 17% facing the Tories. Are you pitching enough to those disgruntled Labour voters?
Well, we have to make sure that we minimise the appetite for protest votes. I remember a time when the Liberal Democrats were where all the protest votes went. And protest votes are what happens when people don't know what your party stands for, or when they don't like what you're doing in office. We are in opposition now. We are not the government. And I believe in competition. I actually like having other parties doing things because it means that we're forced to do better. If you're trying to, gain market share, you don't spend the time thinking about merging with another product. You want to be the best product. I mean, mergers happen when when companies and parties are not doing that well. I think that we need to be the very best version of conservatism that there is.
I cannot believe the complete absence of condemnation of violent rhetoric and disinformation from MPs arising from Elon Musk et al. And his comments. There's been absolutely nothing about a foreign, possibly deranged billionaire setting the not only the tone of the debate, but also the actual content of the debate. So my question to you is, as leader of the opposition, why on earth aren't we hearing from opposition MPs saying, thank you, Elon, but we will control our own political agenda and we will not tolerate this attack on our elected representatives. And I would also add that Elon Musk and anyone on the bandwagon of Rochdale, I think Elon running out.
Karen, I need to get you to get to the end of your question.
Yes, briefly, why isn't Kemi standing there, denouncing this whipping up of fervour against public servants, violent fervour?
So thank you very much for your question. I do think that we are living in a time where there's virtually no deference to politicians or anyone in public life. People are so much more angry. They're so much more visceral. You look at anything that I put online and all that goes on after it is abuse. People literally are waiting. You have anti-fans, not fans, people waiting to try and pull you down and tear you down. And I think the best thing you can do is lead by example. And that is what I want to do. Now, you ask why I don't condemn Elon Musk. I've seen a lot of the stuff that he's put out there. And obviously, if you are someone who he is talking about, it can be quite unpleasant. But I'm afraid that my calling people out in that way, just because I don't like what they say, is against my principle of free speech. I don't think he has called for violence. I don't think there are limits, but he hasn't called for violence against people.
Hang on a second, because
so we need to be very careful about what we're accusing people of.
Sure, but you're a former Minister for Women.
Yes.
Why can't you unequivocally condemn the way Elon Musk targeted Jess Phillips, calling her a rape genocide apologist? Now, Jess Phillips says women in politics suffer this kind of abuse much worse than men. Why is that so difficult to call out?
Because it's not difficult to call out. But
you haven't.
Well, Jess Phillips called other people rape genocide apologists. I didn't attack her for that either. There's only so much that I can spend my time saying, and I'm not wading into everybody's battle. I will say things when I think it's necessary for me to say them. Jess Phillips is a feisty person who spent a lot of time attacking others. She can fight her own battles. I am not interested in spending time
So you have no, as a fellow woman, you have no
Elon
sympathy for Jess Phillips being called that?
I have sympathy for anyone who is facing abuse on social media. I don't like it. I think he was being rude and insulting. He was not calling for violence. And so where I draw the line is when people are inciting.
But by doing that, he is inciting because he's licensing other people to do the same or even worse.
I think that it is important that we make sure as politicians that we control our discourse.
Let's go to Elliot in Cheadle. Elliot, hi, what would you like to ask?
Well, very simply, can I ask Kemi exactly where her personality and characteristics have dissipated to? She was supposed, when she got into the leadership, to be a robust individual with robust views, anti-woke values, no-nonsense style, forthright. When she speaks at the dispatch box every Wednesday to the Prime Minister, since she's been leader of the opposition, she comes across as a pupil who is asking the master some very delicate questions and tries to be so conciliatory. Where does all the attitude and the supposed character dissipated to?
Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. I am still the same person. And I think Keir Starmer might disagree with you that I'm being conciliatory. I'm asking him some very difficult questions. But I think what you might be observing is the change from answering questions to asking them. It's a totally different thing. And I love answering questions. That's why I'm on this show. I know what I think, and I want people to know what I think. And you will hear me answering questions in a very robust way, and I don't shy away from saying difficult things. Asking questions is a totally different thing. It is about making sure that you, the listener, understand what it is the person is doing. So Prime Minister's questions, is often Punch and Judy, but I want people to be able to interrogate the Prime Minister, not just attack him. It's not just about telling someone how awful they are, even though that's what you think.
But you do have to duff him up occasionally, don't you?
Yes.
People expect that.
Well, they do, and I do,
May I interrupt you?
Yes, of course.
You are trying to be an assertive individual. You want the public to believe in what you say. Why don't you, instead of sitting on the fence, attack the Prime Minister for what he really is, a confidence trickster? I've got literally a couple of minutes for you to answer. Please.
Okay. Well, the thing is, there are certain things that you're not allowed to say in Parliament. There are actually rules. So you can't call people a liar. You can't say that they're disingenuous. And I also need to make sure that everything I'm saying is something that can be stood up. So it's not just about throwing out my opinions. And it is a long process. It's not just what you see every week.
I think Elliot was expecting a bit more oomph. That's what he wants.
Okay.
But do your advisors say, Kemi, you've said yourself that you can start a fight in an empty room. You've got to tone it down a bit.
Well, people have said that. So the most interesting thing about Prime Minister's questions is how everybody wants you to do it differently. So if you say A, people ask, why didn't you say B? And if you say B, they say, why didn't you say A? If you carry...
That's just your own MPs.
Yeah, indeed. Some people say, why don't you use all your 6 questions on one topic so you can really nail him? And some people say, well, why didn't you talk about all these other things that are happening? There's so much else going on. Why are you only talking about this one thing? So everybody has a different way that they'd want to do it. And I will try lots of different things. But please remember that what I'm doing is working as the leader of the opposition so that everyone out there in the country can hear the Prime Minister speak for himself. He is, in my view, the one who will actually expose himself rather than me, because it's the answers he gives that shows what sort of person he is. And at the moment, he is not answering any questions. I'm asking him questions. He can't give any answers.
We've reached that bit of the hour. You know it's coming now. It is.
Oh, no. I thought we just started.
Quickfire questions.
Oh, okay, fine,
Don't you just love those? Right, here we go. Keep supporting Ukraine or encourage a deal?
Keep supporting Ukraine.
Bring ISIS fighters back from Syria like Sebastian Gorka wants, yes or no?
No.
For a drink down the pub, would you prefer Angela Rayner or Rachel Reeves?
Definitely Angela. I actually quite like her. People think I don't, but I actually quite like her. I think she'd be fun. We just have very different politics.
What's a treat you allow your kids but probably shouldn't?
Too much screen time.
Just to keep them quiet.
Well, I'm often working at home. So yes.
Streaming has really overtaken linear TV in recent years. What are you watching?
I am dipping in and out of Yellowstone, which my husband is watching. I don't have the time, sadly, but it's so gripping that even though I'm only dipping in and out, he fills me in on what I've missed.
Well, I can highly recommend Black Doves.
Okay.
You'd love that.
I will watch Black Doves then.
You used to work in McDonald's. What's your favourite order? Or having worked in McDonald's, does that mean you can never go in again?
Well, yes. So when I worked there while I was at college, so I was working part-time and at college part-time, and I went there every day. And even when it wasn't my shift, I would go in, and I remember it was £3.88, and I would always get a quarter pounder with cheese. I cannot look at a quarter pounder with cheese anymore. But I still do eat at McDonald's, but only breakfast. So if I'm going to McDonald's, I'm getting a bacon and egg McMuffin. That's my favourite thing.
Okay. Dream holiday destination? Chagos, anyone?
Almost always Italy. Yes. I can't always afford it, but almost always Italy.
3 more to go. What makes you cry?
What makes me cry? Sad movies make me cry. When they get you when you're not paying attention. I remember crying for do you remember the Inside Out? These Pixar movies. Toy Story 3. Story 3 got my eyes welling up as well. So it's often silly things rather than the big things.
What makes you laugh?
Almost anything.
Or who makes you laugh?
My husband makes me laugh. My husband makes me laugh a lot. A lot of my colleagues and MPs are very, very funny. So you have to find humour in politics. Otherwise, you'll be miserable.
And finally, what's the thing you most miss about Nigeria?
Probably heat. Not much, because when I look back on it, I love the people. But I did not like a lot of the experiences. So the thing I miss the most is the weather, not rainy season, but the heat. So I love sunshine, and sunshine doesn't always come with heat. So we've had these frosty days. The sunshine, even on the frosty days, is very welcome. Cloud is sad. Cloudy days are sad.